All right, we're good to go on my
Good
end.
to go. Okay, I'm gonna start, and then Jessica, I'll let you take over with your spiel on how to do everything. All right.
Okay.
Let me just get the meeting going. My name is Richard Jurzak, okay? Jurzak. This is a meeting of the South Kingstown, Rhode Island Zoning Board of Review. Members present, okay? Robert Cagnetta, Richard Jurzak, Thomas Daniels, William Mark, and William Rosen, okay? Also present are the zoning enforcement official and building inspector, Wayne Pimentel, okay? The South Kingstown Administrative Support Associate, Jessica Spence, okay? And the Assistant Town Solicitor, okay, Amy Goins, okay? The way this thing works now, I know most of you are, there's only, I think, 2 people here that don't know this, but this is the way this works, okay? We've got 5 regular members, okay, and 2 alternate members. At the moment, we only have 1 alternate member. We're looking for a new one, okay? Uh, the way it works is that the 5 regular members will vote on any particular application, okay? The alternate members will vote only if a regular member is absent or if a regular member recuses himself from voting, okay? However, all members, including the alternate members, are expected to actively participate in the discussions, okay? Mr. Bernardo is now present as well, John Bernardo, another one of our members, okay? So at the present time, all the regular members will be here and they will be voting, okay? All right, today we have no variance requests. All we have is we have a special use permit request and a couple of things that I understand they're going to go over. This board is a quasi judicial body created by South Kingstown ordinance pursuant to state law. We don't follow strict rules of evidence and operate in what we believe to be a fair and equitable manner. We like to let everyone speak, okay? We please ask you to be as brief as possible and also to stay relevant, okay? When your petition is called, okay, please, okay, clearly state your name and spell it, okay? Please speak clearly, okay, so everyone can hear you, okay? You will be asked to take an oath to tell the truth. You will then present your petition. You may also have other witnesses testify in support for your petition. The board members will then ask questions of you and or your witnesses. After you are done, anyone else wishing to present testimony in support or opposition to the petition or ask questions will then come, well, they won't come to the microphone, but they will then identify themselves, be sworn in, and present their testimony. Board members may again ask questions. Once all have spoken, petitioner will be allowed to answer questions raised by the audience and or respond to audience comments. After hearing all testimony, before a vote is taken, board members will be asked to openly discuss the evidence presented. With regard to variances and special use permits, 4 of the 5 members voting must vote in favor of the petition for the relief sought to be granted. Okay, one last thing, since we have only special use permits on today, please understand our authority is limited here. If we want to grant a variance request or a special use permit request, we have to follow the ordinance. In order to follow the ordinance, okay, we literally have to find certain things. So here it goes. With regard to special use permits, okay, if you are seeking a special use permit, you must present evidence to the board that, number 1, the special use permit you are requesting is specifically authorized by the zoning ordinance. Number 2, the special use requested meets all the criteria set forth in the zoning ordinance authorizing such special use. And number 3, the granting of the special use permit will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of the South Kingstown zoning ordinance or comprehensive plan. Okay, having said all that, I'm going to turn it over to Jess. And Jess, would you go through and tell everyone how this Zoom thing works so we know what we're doing?
Sure. Hi, my name is Jessica Spence, and tonight on the Zoom meeting, there's just a couple of things as to how it works. So all the applicants will remain muted and their video will remain off until your petition has been called. At that time, I'm going to unmute the applicant and ask permission to turn your video back on. Applicants can direct me to bring up any supporting documents that have been previously submitted, and I can screen share any of that information. The applicants will give testimony just like they normally do. Once the applicant's testimony has been completed, the chair is going to ask if anyone in the audience wishes to speak. So that's basically anyone who's sitting in the attendees room. At that point, if you wish to speak, you should raise your hand. That is a function on your computer. There's a little raise hand button. If you are calling in by phone, that's where it's a little bit different. What you need to do is hit *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to mute and unmute. The attendees will not have any video on. It is strictly just going to be speaking. Once they are done speaking, they will be muted, and if they needed to speak again, they'd have to raise their hand again. Just a couple more things to keep in mind. The agenda, all the supporting documents, everything that is going to get shown tonight is available to view online. It's at southkingstownri.com. It's under the Building and Zoning Department, and then it is under current zoning applications. If you're having technical difficulties, the agenda, which is posted there, kind of gives you some troubleshooting information. We do have a question and answer function. We are only using that function for technical issues, not any type of questions related to the zoning application. You'd need to wait for the public comment section if you have any comments to make on that. So that's basically it. Any questions, then we'll just kind of roll through them as they come. I don't know if Amy needed to say anything tonight.
Nope.
Okay, then we're all set.
Okay, yeah, all right, thank you, Jessica. All right, what we're going to do first off is we're going to skip to the 4th item. You know, these Roman numerals are confusing me, but so be it. I'm not Roman. Because John, Mr. Kenyon has requested that this go over until the next meeting. I guess Jessica's flashed a letter up here. I'm going to read it very quickly. It's addressed to me. I'm writing to you on behalf of my client, Charles Walsh, regarding the application scheduled for your May 27, 2020 meeting. It is our understanding that some of the neighbors have requested additional time to prepare for the meeting. My client is agreeable to continuing the matter until your next meeting. Please accept this as a request to continue the meeting until June 17, 2020 at 7 p.m. Thank you in advance for your attention to this matter. Signed, John Kenyon. Okay, now the only issue I have on this is that Jessica and I were speaking before this meeting, and we are loaded up for the 17th already. And John, I think what we would like to do is have that go to have a special meeting the week after. There's one other matter on, right? Jessica,
no, that one actually asked to be continued until July. That's the Brood Awakenings petition.
It is.
Yep.
Okay.
So right now we would only have the Walsh petition on June 24th. And John and I had actually spoke about that, and he had indicated that it was fine.
Okay.
Yes,
John,
this
ahead.
is Amy Goins.
Okay.
John, the name is escaping me right now, but the opposing counsel, are they available as well as his expert if necessary? And perhaps it wouldn't come to his side, but I just want to know if you've spoken with him.
Thanks, Amy. For the record, it's John Kenyon, attorney for the applicant, Charles Walsh. I did speak with the attorney's name who was in one of the letters to the zoning board, and he said he has not been retained by the neighbors.
Okay.
So I called him to check to see if the date was okay with him, and he said he wasn't representing them at this time.
Okay.
We currently have 7 matters on June 17th, and our first 2 meetings, I think we got 6 done or 5 done. I can't imagine we're going to get to the Walsh matter if we have 7 on already. So my suggestion would be, unless there's somebody who's violently opposed to this, that we put this matter on the 24th. Okay?
I agree with that. Let's put it on a special, and if in between now and June 24th, the neighbors do end up retaining an attorney and getting experts to be available, if that night isn't convenient for them, perhaps the zoning board can reschedule a continuation at their convenience if we have experts and attorneys involved on the other side.
Maybe we should poll the board. Gentlemen, can you come on the 24th? John Bernard, are you okay on the 24th?
Yes.
Okay. Bill, Mark?
No.
No? Okay. Mr. Daniels? Can you hear me, Mr. Daniels?
Yes.
You can come? All right.
Yes.
Mr. Cagnetta,
June 24th, yes.
you okay? Mr. Rosen?
Yes.
Okay, so I can come. So we have 5, okay? But we all have to come now that Mr. Mark can't come. Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to have that go over to the 24th?
Sure, I'll do it.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Daniels.
At the request of the attorney for the Charles Walsh petition, I move the continuation of that petition for a special use permit and dimensional variance under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is seeking to construct a new single-family dwelling. A special use permit is required because the proposed OWTS is proposed to be located within 150 feet of a wetland. A favorable advisory opinion was obtained by the SK Conservation Commission in March of 2020. The dwelling will be located 25 feet from the front property line. The required front yard setback is 40 feet. A relief of 15 feet is requested. The lot size is 0.57 acres. A dimensional variance is required under the zoning ordinance section 401. And a special use permit is required under zoning ordinance section 504.1. And section 907 standards of relief. The owner of the property is Louise Marie Walsh Living Trust for premises located at Rosebriar Avenue, Assessors Map 90-4, Lot 215, and is zoned R30. And I move that the petition of the applicant be moved to the June 24th agenda of the zoning board.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Daniels. Would someone second it?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mr. Mark. Any discussion? Okay, let's vote. Mr. Daniels?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Mark?
Aye.
Mr. Cagnetta?
Aye.
Mr. Bernardo?
Aye.
And Mr. Jurzak? Aye. Okay, motion passes. Okay? All
Mr.
right.
Chairman,
Yep,
before we move on, we've had someone who's had their hand raised.
Okay, why don't we
So-
let them speak?
All right, so this is Mary Gail Smith.
All right, Ms. Smith, are you there?
Right, you just need to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted.
You're
My-
Okay.
We can hear you.
Hello, my question was earlier just to find out if you knew I was here. So you do, and that's all I needed to know.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So be it on that one. Now, going back to the beginning, before we get into numbers 1 and 2, I had read this over and I have a question for our attorney. Go ahead, Amy. I mean,
Sure, and this is Amy Gowan, Special Legal Counsel, and Rick and I spoke about this before the meeting. The request from the Merciers for a third extension of their special use permit and dimensional variance. And I believe the special use permit was received November 16th, 2016, and the dimensional variance was received on April 19th, 2017. Both of those approvals were subject to the state tolling statute, which provides that deadlines pertaining to land use approvals stopped from 2009 to June 30th, 2017. And that was in response to the economic slowdown the state experienced. And Rick, when we spoke before the meeting, I remembered incorrectly when the tolling statute ended. So the tolling statute ended on June 30th, 2017. So that means the clock started to run on both of these applications as of July 1st, 2017. So the original expiration date for both of these permits was 2018, July 1st, 2018. And then then the first extension request would have brought the expiration date from 2018 to 2019. And apparently At some point, it was extended to 2020. I'm sorry, that was the second extension. So there's 3 one-year periods that you get when you have a zoning approval. The first is the automatic deadline for everyone is 1 year. You have 1 year to act on the zoning approval, either by getting a building permit, by completing construction, putting in substantial effort. The first 1 year extension is considered by right, more or less. It doesn't require advertising or a hearing. The second 1 year extension does require advertising and a hearing. And under section 910, the zoning board is not permitted to grant a further extension beyond the second extension. So you get your initial 1 year period, you get a first extension of that, and then you get a second extension of that. So the maximum time that a zoning approval can remain alive before it's acted on, and specifically by acted on, the zoning ordinance says, obtain a legal building permit and proceed with construction, or when no building permit is required, obtain a certificate of occupancy. So the zoning board unfortunately can't take any action on this request because we're not empowered to do so. Under section 910B, the board is limited only to 2 extensions.
So this is both for the item agenda number 1 and item agenda number 2. Both those.
Correct.
Appear. John, do you have any comments on?
Yes, again, for the record, it's John Kenyon, attorney for the applicant. And section 910 gives the board the authority for the extensions. It doesn't prohibit further extensions. It doesn't say that you can't get them. It just doesn't contain language saying that you can necessarily. We felt that, especially considering the current situation, because this applicant is very close to being able to pull a building permit. They have identified another system in the watershed. They've entered into an agreement with another property owner in order to upgrade that system. That system's now being approved by DEM. They've engaged a builder. They are designing a house and they've applied to CRMC for the assent. They thought they would be able to get the building permit by July 1st. We requested this because of the COVID situation and the fact that everything slowed down so dramatically. They're most likely not going to be able to pull a building permit by July 1st, which would mean they'd have to start this process all over again.
And John, I understand the position your clients are in and I sympathize with it. And I want to let you know our office, in conjunction with the League of Cities and Towns and the Rhode Island chapter of the American Planning Association, we did request that the governor's office toll approvals just as they were told between 2009 and 2017 for this particular crisis. No action was taken in that regard. So I agree, the zoning ordinance doesn't prohibit the board from granting a third 1 year extension, but typically we read the zoning ordinance, the board is a board of limited jurisdiction, and generally we say it can only do what it's empowered to do in the zoning ordinance.
Okay. So Amy, what is your advice to us then? To not?
Well, don't forget, I mean, this, if we don't grant it tonight, it doesn't mean they're barred from going forward. It would just mean that the approvals, if not acted on, if a building permit isn't obtained by the current expiration date, they could apply for the same relief, and they could, that could be granted again as a new application.
Okay. All right. Well, obviously, I mean, I feel for these people as well. But again, I've been harping that our authority is within the 4 corners of the zoning ordinance. And I mean, I don't feel comfortable with it. I don't know how to,
Let's,
yeah, go ahead, John. Yeah.
why don't we grant it? Because I'll tell you what, I fail to see the prejudice to the town in granting a continuance. I just can't see how the town is hurt by this, especially in light of what everyday life is now like in light of this pandemic. So I would go ahead and grant it. There's no one here objecting. So,
We don't know that yet, but wait, we'll check that in a
All right.
second. We're
Mr.
still
Chair-
trying to get through the process
Chair?
of deciding if we have the right to do that.
Mr. Chair? if I
Yeah,
may-
go ahead, Mr. Daniels.
If I may. The ordinance does require that the applicant demonstrate due diligence in proceeding and substantial financial commitment in proceeding in order to gain the extension. So I would ask Attorney Kenyon to respond to that or take some testimony with regard to that.
I intended to do that, Mr. Daniels. I just wanted to get through first off to find out how we all feel, if we have the right to even, before we have Mr. Kenyon tell us all that, to find out if we have the right to do it, okay? But okay, well, look, I'll tell you what, let's do that. John, why don't you go through your testimony and then we'll let the board members decide. Everyone will vote their conscience. So tell us what tell us a little bit about what they've done and what they've spent, and what their plans are, and we'll see what we can do here. Okay?
That sounds like a good plan. So the applicant's property is located on Green Hill Beach Road. It's designated as Lot 105 on Tax Assessors Plat 96-1. The zoning relief included a special use permit to install an OWTS within 150 feet. And the variance was a front yard variance of 8.3 feet to allow the construction of a 24-foot by 24-foot single-family residence. The applicant had been marketing the property, which was difficult due to the conditions that were placed on the property from RIDM and CRMC. The Merciers recently transferred the property to Terry Bedard, who's their daughter, along with her husband, James, and they're both at the meeting tonight. They've entered into an agreement with a neighbor to upgrade their OWTS. As I stated, they're in the process of designing it and obtaining approvals for it. So I hired a builder, South County Post and Beam, to design and build the home. They filed with CRMC for an assent for the home. And as I stated, Terry Bedard is here tonight. I'm going to have her go over the process they've been through, the cost they've expended. Prior to that, though, I was going to have Eric Prevey go over the letter from the Friends of Green Hill Pond that I believe was submitted to the zoning board, and he was going to address their concerns, and then we were going to have Terry address the other issues.
Okay. The one thing I do want to do, okay, just to make this, before you go any further, just to make this technically correct, I did not go through and read these agenda items, and I want to make it perfectly clear what we're talking about, all right? Let's talk, and I guess we could, Amy, can we speak to both of these at the same time? I'm assuming, John, the evidence is going to be the same.
Yes,
Or,
you can.
Evidence is
Okay.
going to be exactly the same.
Okay, well, let me just go through and read this for the record. The first one is petition of Michael and Bertha Mercier, 23 Crescent Beach Drive, Enfield, Connecticut, for dimensional variance extension under the zoning ordinance as follows. Request for a third one-year extension of expiration date of the dimensional variance granted on April 19, 2017, recorded on May 1, 2017, for property owned by Michael and Bertha Mercier, 23 Crescent Beach Road, Enfield, Connecticut, for a dimensional variance to construct a 24-foot by 24-foot dwelling closer to a front yard line than permitted in an R80 zone. 40 feet required, 31.7 feet requested. Premises located at Green Hill Road, South Kingstown, Rhode Island, Assessors Map 96-1, Lot 105, Section 504 and 907. Request made pursuant to Section 910B of the zoning ordinance. The applicant requests an extension of the expiration date from July 1, 2020 to July 1, 2021. All right, and then there's just a listing of variances that were granted before. I don't think I'm going to read those, but in the second petition, petition of Michael and Bertha Mercier, 23 Crescent Beach Drive, Enfield, Connecticut, for special use permit extension under the zoning ordinance as follows. Request for third one-year extension of expiration date for special use permit granted on November 16th, 2016, and recorded on December 14th, 2016, for property owned by Michael and Bertha Mercier, 23 Crescent Beach Drive Road, Enfield, Connecticut, for a special use permit to install an on-site wastewater treatment system, OWTS, closer to a wetland than permitted in an R80 zone. 150 feet required, 83 feet requested. Premises located at Green Hill Beach Road, South Kingstown, Rhode Island. Assessors map 96-1, lot 105, and section 504 and 907. Request made pursuant to section 910B of the zoning ordinance. Applicant requests an extension of the expiration date from July 1, 2020 to July 1, 2021. Okay, and again, then we just listed out the different prior decisions. Okay, John, go ahead now and then go through and put your witnesses on and let's go to it.
Sure. At first, I was going to have Eric Prevey, who's a registered professional engineer. He'll go over his background briefly.
Okay,
And then we were just going to have him address the letter that we received from the Friends of Green Hill Pond. I think we can address all their concerns in that letter.
okay. Go, Eric, just raise your right hand.
I'm trying.
You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, just spell your name so it's on the
Sure.
record.
Eric Prevey, P-R-I-V as in Victor E. I'm a registered professional engineer with Dupree Engineering. Office is at 2 Stafford Court in Cranston, Rhode Island. I am a registered professional engineer for 12 years now. I've been practicing for 20 years altogether now. Also, I was the original engineer of record for both of these, both the special use permit and for the variance that has been granted previously. Also, I'm the designer for the septic system as well, the OWTS on the site as well.
Okay, and you've testified in many such hearings before, right?
I have, yes.
Okay, all right, John, go ahead.
Sure, Eric, you just want to go over the two concerns that were raised in the letter and how we're addressing them?
Sure, we'll do it. So I'm
Excuse me,
referencing
Eric,
the,
just one second first. To the board members, you gentlemen all have the letter from Green Hill Pond, Friends of Green Hill Pond? Board
Yeah.
members?
I do.
You do, everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so anyone who doesn't, anyone not have it? We know what we're discussing. Okay. Amy, do you think I have to read this letter? It's a 2-page letter. I'm just wondering for people listening by way of phone.
You do not have to read the letter in its entirety, but you can summarize it
Summarize
if you can.
Okay, well, basically, you know what? We're gonna let Mr. Prevey summarize the concerns, I think then, okay? Because
actually,
they're,
yeah.
go ahead, yeah.
I could
Yeah,
also-
so, oh, go ahead.
Excuse me, I could bring the letter up on screen share also.
But that doesn't do any good for the people with phones,
No, but
right?
there's a lot of attendees, so.
Oh,
I-
okay,
I-
all right.
You probably don't want to see me anyway.
You can start, Eric. I'll go ahead.
Oh,
and-
Okay, so yeah, I'm referencing the May 25th letter from Friends of Green Hill Pond. It was written by Mr. Dennis Bowman or Bowman, I don't know the pronunciation, the president for the Friends of Green Hill Pond. And I'll read it as well because it's probably helpful. The first point, they had 2 points, and they said for consideration with this application. The first point, I'll just read it first and then tell you how we're respond. It says, first, we ask that the zoning board reconsider the importance of the 150-foot buffer space between an advanced OWTS system and Green Hill Pond. Comments made in prior meetings suggested that the 150-foot buffer might be out of date given advances in OWTS technology. However, recent research by Dr. Rebecca Robinson and her team at URI School of Oceanography has found that the groundwater around Green Hill Pond is very efficient in carrying high levels of nutrients into the pond over long distances. We simply ask that the zoning board review the results of this important groundwater study before granting any new variances to the 150-foot OWTS buffer. So I was going to do that one first, and then I'll go to the second one and read it
Okay.
separately, if that's okay.
Go ahead,
Okay, so I also wanted to add on this that the emphasis on their letter is for any new variances as well. I didn't put that emphasis there. That's their letter. So we were interpreting that this was kind of more of an open statement for the zoning board looking forward for any new variances. This would be an extension of the previously issued variances. If you want, I can also go through some of the to review, because it's been a little bit since that time that some of the items that we did to help remediate in this area. Some of the things that we did were we cited the septic system as far away as possible from the coastal feature. We're limited by the land itself, obviously the property boundaries, but we got relief even from DEM to move it and get a 5 feet of relief in the front to push the system even further away. So we got a variance from DEM for the septic to be pushed even further away from the wetland feature. It is 2-bedroom deed restricted as well. So that limits the amount of flow. So that's a deed restriction in perpetuity as well. So that limits the flow and limits the nutrients on this site. We were also required to use a pre-treatment technology of a 75% denitrification. That's more than the normal that you would see. So areas in this one happens to be in the salt pond management area. All systems that get upgraded nowadays are required to have a 50% denitrification reduction, but this one was actually required to do a 75% reduction. So it uses a even better technology to be able to polish the water down even more, down to 10 milligrams per liter. On top of that, the applicant was required to find an offset property as well. So there was a predefined watershed that DEM had determined was also the exact contributing area of this property. So it couldn't be on the other side of the pond. It had to be on this side of the pond in the same general area. And that watershed was defined and approved by DEM. The applicant since that time has found a property within that watershed. It's actually at 161 Carpenter Drive, and they're in the process. It's actually pending with DEM for the approval for also another 75% reduction. So that's above and beyond what's normally required. Again, a 50% reduction. So both this property and the offset property both will have a 75% reduction in nutrients for these as well. So those are the types of, it ends up having a zero net change to the area. So it ends up being as if this property, by the time you take the 75% of this site and a 75% reduction of the offset site, it's as if the site itself, the nutrients would be a net zero. It would not be any additional nutrients going to Green Hill Beach Pond. So we believe that we've done all of the safeguards necessary to take the nutrients out, and we also believe that the way that it's written from Green Hill, from the Friends of Green Hill Beach Pond, the way that the emphasis is on the new variances, that it was more of a general note. It wasn't necessarily specific to this. And I'll move in onto the second one, because it says on the second one, it says second and more specific to Mercier's special use request. So it makes me feel like the first one is more of a general for going forward of new variances, but it says more specific to Mercier's for the second one. So I'll pause on that one for a minute, unless you'd like me to continue right to the second one.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions on that one? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So the second one says, second and more specific to Mercier's special use permit request, we ask the board to consider strengthening the conditions for the nutrient offset provisions. As you know, this provision requires the Merciers find another home somewhere in the area where a permit has been issued by DEM and pay for a new septic system for that home. Regardless of the overall wisdom of this DEM policy, we would request that the zoning board consider requiring that the applicant cannot start using their own OWTS system until the OWTS system on the offset property is fully operational. This requirement will help ensure the offset OWTS property is reducing the nutrient burden on the pond, coincident with the applicant property adding to that burden. Our response to that one is we have no problems with that. As a matter of fact, that is a requirement of the DEM permit as well. So that is already part of it. As part of the septic approval from DEM, it very specifically says right in the approval, it says the applicant shall ensure, and I'm reading right off of the consent agreement approval, The applicant shall ensure that the nutrient loading offset project is installed and conformed prior to the start of construction for the system on the property. The department shall issue the applicant's permit for the nutrient offset loading project consistent with the application, and it will expire 1 year from the date of issuance. So that is already a requirement of the DEM. So that is saying that this system, the new system for this home on this property, cannot be conformed, and there will be no occupancy until the other system is fully conformed. So installed, approved by DEM, installed by a licensed installer, and then conformed by the state as well. So we have no problem with that. As a matter of fact, that's a requirement of the state permit anyway.
Okay. All right. Board members,
Eh.
questions for this gentleman? Anyone? Okay. All right.
Mr.
Well,
Chairman?
thank you.
I just want to acknowledge that there is an attendee raising his hand, but we will not be taking attendee questions at this point. We'll hear all testimony, and then we will, ask if anyone wishes to speak. So,
All right. John, go ahead.
I have a
Sure, and at
question.
this time, I'm
Oh,
gonna
wait a
ask-
second. Mr. Kegnett, you had a question? Go ahead.
I'm sorry if I could. Mr. Preeve, so have the requirements on this type of property changed within DEM over the past 4 years in terms of
No,
their
they have not.
expectation of, okay.
No, they have not. As a matter of fact, the regulations have not changed since that time. And that permit is still full and valid through 2021 as well. And there haven't been any regulation changes since DEM. No.
Okay. Any other questions, board members?
Oh, and did South Kingstown did not change their rules yet in terms of the 150? I know there was talk of it,
Amy?
but to match up with DEM.
You're
Correct.
muted, Amy.
Yes, correct. This is Amy Goins again. The DEM has not yet promulgated those regulations. They're severely overdue. We don't know when they'll be released. Draft regulations, I think, were released in August or September. They're not effective yet. So the rule still stands on our wetland setback.
Thank you.
All right. Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Kenyon, go ahead.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask either Terry or James Bedard, again, go over the process they've been through and then the cost they've expended in moving forward.
Okay. Are you both going to speak or just one?
Primarily Terry.
Hi, everybody. I'm Terry
All right.
Bedard.
All right. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Spell your names.
Terry, Terry, last name Bedard, Bedard.
And James Bedard, James Bedard.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Of course. Well, thank you, Chairman Jurczak and members of the Zoning Board. We appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. So John and Eric have already touched on a lot of what the process we've been through. But just to bring you back a little bit more and give this some context, my parents, Michael and Bertha Mercier, approached us back in February, and when it was clear that they probably weren't going to be able to sell their property and be able to meet all of the restrictions that John and Eric were referring to in time for this July 1st deadline. And so they asked us to help, and we said we would. And so we set these balls in motion. So the first one was we contacted and hired the South County Post and Beam builders in March to start the home designs. And we're pretty close to being done with those designs, actually. We've been working with them quite diligently. And of course, the objective here is to be able to pull a permit before July 1st. So we're definitely on track with that. However, in order to pull that permit, we need to satisfy a couple of conditions, some of which have been discussed tonight. John referenced the CRMC assent. Eric Creevy has submitted the application. It's my understanding that we need to have approval from CRMC before we can complete or pull the permit, which we are on track to do. And so we have spent already, and we're projected to spend about $20,000. We've already put down a deposit with South County Post and Beam. So, that's a pretty sizable expense. We had an application fee with CRMC, and we have yet to be billed actually by Eric and John, but legal fees, engineering fees there, we estimate between $5,000 and $10,000. John and Eric referenced that we have an offsite property. We have signed an agreement, an OWTS agreement with the homeowner. Eric referenced the address, 161 Carpenter Drive. So we are right now waiting for RIDEM approval. The application was submitted after the engineer submitted the design for the hydrokinetic system, which is an upgrade to what they even were required to do because it's because of the lay of the land, I guess. But we were able to convince them to upgrade to the hydrokinetic system. So we're still waiting for as I said, the RIDEM approval to come through. And then I understand that it only takes a few days to be installed and then conformed. So it's going to be very, very tight, but it's possible, but unlikely that we'll be able to have that done before July 1st. And the cost of that is $20,000. And then, so all in all, if you add all of that up, it's very close to in the neighborhood of about $50,000 that we have invested and committed to, which is certainly pretty substantial, and able to preserve the value of the property, be able to meet this July 1st deadline, and hopefully be able to build a home for my parents to enjoy, and for us to enjoy as well. Yeah. Any questions?
Okay, board members, questions for this witness?
Can I also add that
Sure.
the delays are really connected to this COVID crisis? Number of individuals through CRMC, obviously the professionals that we've hired, and also our IDEM are working remotely. And I know that it's taken longer for these approvals to be met. So I think that we might have been able to meet the deadline. It would have been close, but I think it would have been very possible. But for this COVID crisis, so I don't think that we need a 1-year extension. We really just need 3 to 6 months
yeah.
to give us that extra time to be able to gain those approvals, which are on track. As I said, the balls are in motion. It's just a matter of trying to get the approvals in light of the fact that we're dealing with this unprecedented time.
Okay, all right. Board members, questions for this witness?
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Rosen.
Who's going to be the actual owner of this property and the house? Did you hear
John,
the
do you
question?
want to- Oh, yes, of course. So Jim and I are the owners. My parents did transfer a warranty deed to us because we felt that we needed to be the owners in order to be able to execute all of these agreements.
Right.
So yes, that we are the owners right now.
Okay.
And the petition has your parents' name on it. I don't think that makes a difference, does it, Amy?
The petition can be filed by anyone. The applicant and owner almost doesn't really make a difference. The main thing legally we need to be sure of is that the owner consents to the application, and the owner, if the applicant is not the owner, then the owner authorizes the applicant to speak on her behalf. Given that this property is in the family, I don't have any concerns.
Okay. I'm just seeking information since I'm the newest person on this board.
Amy,
Sure.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, may I address that also?
yeah, go ahead.
So it's John Kenyon again, and the application, when it was filed in April, Mr. and Mrs. Mercier were still the owners. And after that, it was then conveyed to the Bedards, and we then had them file sign an owner authorization form just to be safe. So the parents signed the application, they signed the owner authorization form.
Okay, board members, other questions for this witness? Okay, John, do you have anything else?
No, once again, as Terry stated, if the board's not comfortable with a 1-year extension, then we believe they can probably get it done within 3 to 6 months. So if the board was agreeable to that extension, and that really covers the time they've lost because of the COVID situation. I believe that but for that, they would have been able to pull that building permit by July 1st.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak either in favor or opposition to this petition? Raise your hand. Jessica, tell them how to raise their hand again.
So if you're calling in by phone, it's *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 will unmute you. If you're on the computer, there's a little icon that says raise hand. And right now we have Dennis Bowman. And I've just allowed him to
Okay.
talk. He'll just need to unmute himself.
Okay, Mr.
Hello,
Bowman, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Bo-
much.
Excuse me, will you spell your name, please?
Sure, Bowman, and
Okay.
I'm the author of the letter there.
Okay,
Two
please,
quick points.
excuse me, sir. Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, just 2 quick points. First of all, thanks for the clarification on the nutrient offset. We've dealt with other situations, not this one, where there's been some game playing with the DEM requirement for a nutrient offset system being in place. That's not the case here. Thank you for confirming that. And we have absolutely no objection on the nutrient offset. So fully support that going forward. Second quick point, our intention in focusing the board's attention on the groundwater study was to hopefully provide a basis for a broader understanding this fall using the information coming out of URI, which we think is pretty groundbreaking. And they're finding things like the size, the amount of the buffer to be a secondary priority to the context of the substrate in which it operates here. So it's going to have a powerful impact, I think, eventually on all these zoning buffer requirements. It sounds, if I can take away from it though, from your comments, Mr. Chairman, that this is more a matter for DEM to consider than the town really doesn't have flexibility in terms of considering other requirements than the 150-foot buffer set the state. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, then we have no further comments. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Is there anyone else who wants to speak in favor or opposition to this petition? Okay. All right, John, anything else, or you're done?
No, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'm gonna, just to make sure I know where I stand here, we're gonna open this up, board members discussion. Mr. Daniels, how do you feel? All right?
I have no objection to a 1-year extension.
Okay, Mr. Mark?
I agree with what John Bernardo said, that it's not causing harm to the town, and that the process of moving through both DEM and CRMC is constrained in this current environment. And I think they're working diligently towards getting things done, so I don't object.
Okay, John, Mr. Bernardo?
I agree with my brother, William Mark.
Is it? It's very short for a lawyer. Okay,
Well, he just reiterated what I said, so.
okay. All right. Mr. Cagnetta, you gotta unmute yourself though before you speak. I see you're muted. Mr. Cagnetta? Do we still have him, Jessica? Do you know?
It looks like he's frozen right now.
What does that mean?
I don't
I
know.
hope, I hope it's not a physical thing.
This is Amy.
Do
Let me suggest,
we need him for a vote?
yeah, well, can we, I prefer not to proceed until he's back up. Jess, are you able to contact him, or are you able to boot him out so that he can rejoin?
I just moved him to an attendee, so I want to see if,
Why don't you keep trying? I'm gonna ask Mr. Rosen if he has anything to say. Mr. Rosen?
No, I have no objection to this.
Okay, and I'm persuaded by Mr. Kenyon's argument that we are not prohibited from granting it. And then I'm persuaded by Mr. Bernardo's argument, okay, that clearly it will not harm anything in the town, okay? And I see no reason not to vote for it myself. So if we could just get Mr. Cagnetta unfrozen, this is like a movie or something. We froze the man.
And if you want, you can go ahead and vote on this one.
Can I
But
vote? Can I vote with the alternate? Is that all right?
you can, but before the next one, I'd like to see if Rob can get himself back on board.
Okay. All right. Would someone like to make a motion here? You're going to vote, Mr. Rosen.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay.
This is Mr. Bernardo speaking.
This is John Bernardo. So I'm making a motion on both of these agenda items, both the dimensional variance and the special use permit, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I make a motion that we grant a petition.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, Jess. I see that you've done the screen share. Remember, we don't have to set forth the findings on this one because this is just an extension request.
Okay.
I will identify the zoning ordinance section so that the member, so that John can use.
We lost you, Amy.
Amy, you got muted.
You're muted. I hope she doesn't get frozen too.
Rob is back.
This is not good. This, this may be the virus.
Okay, so the language that we need for the motion is pursuant to section 910B. The board finds that the variance and special use permit may be extended. The expiration dates for those approvals may be extended based on the fact that the applicant has demonstrated due diligence in proceeding and substantial financial commitment in promoting the subject of the variance and the special use permit since the date of the filing of the resolution.
Okay. You want to say that now, John, or should we just?
I will adopt what our council has said in furtherance of my motion to grant the extension. I believe from my understanding of the board that they believe that they did hear compelling evidence and it was demonstrated that these petitioners have not sat back idly. They have been working toward their ultimate goal. They've entered into contracts. They have spent considerable amount of money, and any delays really have a lot to do with what's going on in the world right now with this pandemic. So with that said, I move that we grant the 1-year extension for both the dimensional variance and the special use permit under the petition of Michael and Bertha Mercia, 23 Crescent Beach Drive, Enfield, Connecticut, as indicated in the agenda.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Bernardo. Will someone second it?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Mark. Amy, question now. I know this is technical, but Mr. Cagnetta was gone for a minute. Who's going to vote? Should I have Mr. Rosen or Mr. Cagnetta vote?
Please have Mr. Rosen vote.
Okay. All right. Any discussion on those motions? Okay, no discussion. Let's vote. Okay. Mr. Bernardo.
Aye.
Mr. Mark.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Daniels.
Aye.
Mr. Rosen.
Aye.
Mr. Jurzak. Aye. Okay, motion passes. Okay, good luck.
Great. Thank
Both
you.
extensions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate
Thanks for
your
your time.
granting our requests. And thank you, John and Eric. Good night.
Have a good night.
Yes, be well.
Okay, let's move on. Okay. Jessica, am I missing anything here? No, you're muted. There
No,
you go. At least you're not frozen. All right. Petition of Brian Lind, 51 Tomahawk Trail, South Kingstown, Rhode Island, for a special use permit under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is proposing to construct a new single-family dwelling. A special use permit is required because the OWTS is located within 150 feet of a wetland. A favorable advisory opinion was received from the Conservation Commission on March 3rd, 2020. Lot size is 11,325 square feet. A special use permit is required for zoning ordinance section 504, special use permits, and section 907, standards of relief. The owner is James P. Sharkey for property located on Red Feather Trail North, South Kingstown, Rhode Island. Assessors map 34-2, lot 39, and is zoned R20. Okay. Okay. Who is here? Is this you, Mr. Kenyon, as well?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Once again, it's John Kenyon, attorney for the applicant, Brian Lind. I see that Mr. Lind is here. We should also have Patrick Freeman out there somewhere.
He's waiting. Yep.
Okay, I'll start. The applicant is purchasing property located on Red Feather Trail, designated as lot 39 on tax assessor's plat 34-2 from the current owner, James Sharkey. The property is 0.26 acres in size and it's in an R20 zoning district. The applicant's requesting a special use permit under section 504.1 of the zoning ordinance to install an on-site wastewater treatment system within 150 feet of a wetland. The project engineer is Patrick Freeman, is going to testify to the standards for the 504.1. I will note that we are requesting waivers from the provision that the drainage have the capacity of a 25-year event, and instead we're proposing 10-year frequency rainfall, which I'll have Patrick explain that. And the applicant's also requesting a waiver from the development standard that requires that the impervious lot coverage be limited to 15%, and they're proposing 15.24%, which is an increase by 27 square feet. I wanted to clarify, this isn't a lot coverage variance that you would normally see. Now, R20 zone, they're permitted 25% of lot coverage. And this is an impervious lot coverage, which includes all impervious surfaces like driveways, walkways, and the house itself. And
excuse me, Mr. Kenyon, is that something we have to be, Amy, do we have to be involved in that?
I am just looking at the OWTS section. Give me a moment here. John, are you requesting that the board waive the performance standards, or are you looking at 504.4?
We're looking at 504.4, the G, which is the minimum requirements for stormwater management. Actually, it may also be I, the drainage design.
Yeah. I have to advise the board, you don't have the authority to waive anything in this section. These are the specific standards for a special use permit of this type that the council has decided is appropriate. And, you know, certain development applications, like the planning board has authority to grant waivers from its own regulations. Remember that the subdivision regulations are adopted. Subdivision and land development regulations are adopted by the planning board alone. The council doesn't act on those. Unlike the zoning ordinance, the council adopts the zoning ordinance. The special use standards are what they are, and the board doesn't have the authority to vary them.
This is Wayne. Is that a section that the Conservation Commission out of their standards for review?
So there's two different sections, which is why I was asking. 504.2 conditions for OWTS lists how many is it? 18 areas that the Conservation Conservation Commission shall prepare an advisory opinion based on the following information to be submitted by the applicant as part of any application. So this list in 504.2 tells the applicant, here's the information that you need to provide to the Conservation Commission so that they can make their advisory recommendation. But skipping down to 504.3 OWTS design and 504.4 performance standards, that reads, applications for a special use permit under provisions of section 504 of the zoning ordinance shall meet the following minimum performance standards. There is no authority for the zoning board to modify anything in those standards. Either the application meets the standards, in which case if it meets if all the boxes are checked, the special use permit may issue. If not, that's a specific finding that you have to make for a special use permit, that it meets all of the specific standards set forth in the ordinance.
Okay, so we don't have, John, we don't have the authority to do any of that. We have the authority to either, and frankly, I don't speak for the remaining board members, but I certainly don't have the expertise to even make those decisions whatsoever. I'm not an engineer. I don't know anything about that.
Agreed.
So I don't know. How do we proceed here, Amy? What do we,
So I think you can ask John if he prefers that the application be continued to see if there is a way for the experts involved, the professionals involved to design the system so that it will not require any waivers which can't be granted. I don't have a good idea for how to proceed other than that.
Sure, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
the things we were requesting the waivers from don't really have anything to do with the septic design itself. And so it's really, we could go forward with the special use permit with the understanding that we would reduce the size of the house by the 27 square feet and then increase the drainage capacity from a 10-year storm to a 25-year storm. Of course, that's up to the applicant if he wants to move forward like that.
Not a lot of options that I see.
okay, and you are, sir?
Brian Lind, applicant,
Okay, spell your name, please.
BRIANLIND.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. All right, Amy, so what's the thought on this right now? I mean,
So if he wants to go forward, the board can grant the application with the understanding that it has to meet those standards.
okay. I mean, now what, the Conservation Commission opinion, what, and how did they feel? What did you tell them you were meeting all the standards? I'm not sure how this got by them then. But has nothing to do with the septic system? I don't.
Can we bring the engineer up at this point?
Yes,
No.
so Patrick Freeman's the engineer. I wasn't involved with the matter before the Conservation Commission, so maybe Patrick and Brian can address that.
Okay, go ahead. And Patrick, will you spell your name, please?
Sure. My name is Patrick Freeman. It's Patrick Freeman.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, tell us about your background a little bit first.
So I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Rhode Island, as well as a class 3 outs designer. I've been employed by American Engineering for the past 6 years, working on numerous residential lot developments, subdivisions, condominium projects, as well as drainage design. I've been recognized by the boards of several towns, including Jamestown and North Kingstown.
Okay. All right, go ahead, John.
Well, I was just going to have, I think the question was whether the Conservation Commission were aware of the waiver request and if they had any input on them.
We did make the Conservation Commission aware of the waivers that we were requesting. We discussed it with them. They gave a positive recommendation.
So it sounds like they were aware of them. They didn't have a problem with them, but we understand that if the board can't waive those provisions, we would just go forward and obtain the special use permit for the OWTS. And as I said, the drainage might have to be modified for from the 10-year to the 25-year storm. And then the square footage of the house would have to be reduced by 27 square feet.
And I would suggest that with the application for a building permit, whenever that comes, that the engineer submit correspondence to the building official, just certifying that those standards have been met. That way, the building official isn't in the position of trying to figure that out himself from the plans.
Okay. So Amy, the only thing we would be deciding on here today then is granting a special use permit so that this is located within, it's less than 150 feet from the wetlands. That's what we're deciding, right? I mean, we're not giving any waivers of anything.
Correct. You're deciding whether it meets the special use permit criteria.
Okay, all right. And we have a favorable, positive opinion on that particular subject from the Conservation Commission, okay? But we know nothing about waivers for stormwater or anything like that, okay? All right, John, what else you want to tell us? So do you want Mr. Friedman to further testify or?
Yes, so I was gonna ask that we just, for the exhibits, that we mark the site plan as applicant's exhibit 1, and then the engineer's report as applicant's exhibit 2, and then the Conservation Commission recommendation as applicant's exhibit 3. And then I was going to ask Patrick he's already gone over his professional background, but to explain the existing conditions, proposed conditions, go through the development standards of section 504.1, and then briefly explain the drainage report that was submitted.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The existing site, it's located on the easterly side of Red Feather Trail north, and the westerly side of Bow and Arrow Trail north. The existing parcel consists of 0.26 acres of land and is currently undeveloped. Brian Lind, the applicant, is proposing to develop the parcel with a 2-bedroom dwelling, crushed stone driveway, rain garden, and advanced treatment OWTS. The advanced treatment system is required due to the 12-inch water table found on site that was explored by a class 4 soil evaluator. We're utilizing Septitech M400 denitrification system, which meets the requirements of the ordinance, meets the required values for BOD, TSS, as well as fecal coliform. The other standards, as far as location, there are no existing or proposed wells within 100 feet of the proposed drain field. This application has been approved by DEM. One of the requirements is a recorded O&M. That's typically provided before starting the system once it's installed. So we don't have a recorded O&M, but that is something that is done. We don't have any subsurface drains proposed. We discussed the stormwater management. All
Patrick,
DEM. Yep.
I'm sorry, excuse me, but on the stormwater management, can you explain why we were requesting the 10 years and what needs to be done in order to increase that to the 25 years?
Absolutely. We designed a 10-year storm because that's the standard that the building official typically uses for the soil erosion control plans that we submit to get a building permit. That standard varies from the section 504. 504 requires a 25-year storm. The reason that we decided to use a 10-year storm for this project was there's an existing catch basin westerly of the property that's in Red Feather Trail. So when that pond fills up, it overflows into that catch basin. So any increase in runoff for the 25-year storm would be routed into that catch basin as opposed to the wetlands or any abutting properties.
So was the thinking that the 10-year storm, a 25-year storm would be handled because of that additional catch basin, so that the design wasn't necessary for that?
That is correct.
And is there any problem with increasing that to a 25-year storm?
No.
And if you want to go forward with the development standards, please.
Absolutely. We minimize the disturbance on site to the greatest extent feasible while still meeting the project's goals. In addition, to protect the wetland area from any further encroachment, we've proposed a 10-foot on center planting that will further protect the wetland area from this proposed development. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a couple questions.
Go ahead.
Mr. Freeman, on the impervious lot coverage, as I stated earlier, that's not just the general lot coverage, that's impervious surface lot coverage, correct?
That is correct.
And we were looking for the slight relief because of the size of the lot would only permit approximately 1,500 square feet of building area, correct?
That is correct.
And is the applicant proposing a pervious driveway and all other surfaces be pervious other than the house itself?
That's correct. The only impervious surface on site is the proposed dwelling.
And so by your calculations, normally if there were other impervious surfaces, we could just reduce them, but we don't have any. So it'll require just reducing the size of the house by the 27 square feet, correct?
That is correct.
And in your opinion, as a professional engineer, if the special use permit is granted, will it have any negative impact on the surrounding properties or the area in general?
It will not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no further questions. I was going to have Mr. Lind testify as to the what he plans on doing with the property.
Okay, go ahead.
Question,
Yeah, good evening.
question for the
Oh,
previous,
go ahead.
previous person that testified.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
Let me
Daniels.
just seek some clarification on your testimony. Is it your testimony that by reducing the coverage, or I should say, reducing the building by 27 square feet, that you will not exceed 15% of the impervious coverage? Was that your testimony?
That's correct. The building is 0.24% over the impervious coverage requirement. So in order to get it down to 15% even, it would require a reduction in 27 square feet of building area.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
You know, Jessica, can I ask you a question? Was any of this advertised? The percentage reductions in impervious area and all that? We didn't,
I can bring up the legal notice, but Wayne would know that better.
Wayne?
No. No, because when I read the Conservation Commission report, it stated in their letter that they had, I just want to refer back to that.
Yeah, none of it was advertised.
Yeah.
And it's not an issue because we can't grant any waivers.
Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Item number 1 in the conservation stated that the project appears to meet all standards listed in section 504 of the zoning ordinance. So we were assuming that they met those and that.
And by the way, this is Amy. I will be speaking to the staff who work with the Conservation Commission, and we'll try to get them, we'll perhaps give them some training on this.
Okay, okay, all right. Go ahead, Mr. Kenyon and Mr. Lind.
Yeah, good evening. No, just trying to give the highlights. You know, we worked hard. The whole design, the whole premise of this property is for my aging parents. I live in the neighborhood, trying to get them somewhere I can keep an eye on them and help them get them on one floor. So, you know, the square footage is very critical with trying to do not a handicap accessible, but, you know, try to keep them in their home and as they age. So that's why we went with the square footage that we had. Obviously, we're going to be reducing that slightly at this point since we don't have an option to do such. But it's personal use and long-term going to be a family property. So we're hoping to get to the next step on this and see what we can do with the drainage. So if we can, as John stated, we can grant the septic at this point, then we'll modify the other pieces to make them conforming and we'll make it work.
Go ahead, John.
And Brian, the house is limited to 2 bedrooms per the OWTS.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and the basis, the square footage on the first floor is key, and that's why it is the shape and size it is. You know, we would have loved to have it even bigger, but obviously we're working with a lot of constraints here. So, but 2 bedrooms in perpetuity, and that's in the DEM approvals, which we do have for wetlands and the septic system.
You have current permit for the septic DM? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And I would note, Mr. Chairman, the house meets all the setback requirements, the lot coverage requirement, everything else under the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I was there today and it certainly looks like, doesn't seem like there's a major issue with it, but okay. Okay, anything else, John?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay, any board members want to ask questions of these gentlemen?
No.
No? All right, does anyone want to speak in favor or opposition? Anyone in the audience to this petition?
I have a Jack Maletta, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, why don't we'll let him on. Mr. Maletta, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please, will you spell your name, please?
Certainly, it's actually John, Maletta, Maletta,
Okay.
and I live right across the street from the proposed property.
Okay, Mr. Maletta, do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
So I haven't been involved in any of the process up to this point, but I've been kind of watching and listening to what's happening. And I'm quite shocked to hear the engineer say that the proposition is not going to change the flooding. I mean, we get floods on that area often. Now, my driveway it comes out right exactly where, from what I can see on these plans here, where the new driveway would come out coming the other direction. And I'm downhill, lower elevation. I have major concerns that, you know, any change in the property across the street and the wetlands there can alter, you know, the flooding in my yard, my driveway, and ultimately my basement. So I'm not an engineer. I haven't been involved in these studies, but I'm just shocked that they can put the property of any kind in that location. I mean, that's wet, that floods all the time. 10 years, I've only been here about 7 or 8 years. That floods all the time, constantly. So I'm concerned. I don't know what, you know, I feel bad for the gentleman who wants to build there, but it's just, you know, they put a house behind me last year. I didn't say a word. They blew up and dynamited the cement. They hit the side of my house and changed everything from this side. And now I got a house they're saying they're going to put on the other side. I didn't say anything about the property behind me that's completely blocking my view, but the house they're proposing here, I'm worried about for flooding. I mean, it's a big concern. We get ice jams over there in the spring and winter time often, and it's I'm concerned. I'm not sure I was invited to participate, so I don't know what say I have, but I'm very concerned about it.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mr. Maleta?
Yeah, I do want to mention the gentleman was talking earlier about a drainage area that he, I believe, said would help for overflowing. There's a drain on the far corner of the intersection with Red Feather Trail on the main road there. That's awfully far away. That doesn't, and that's also jams up all the time. And you get fall leaves going in there. I don't know if that's what he's referring to. On the other side, you have another your property is adjacent on either side. So, and they all run down to me. I'm at a lower elevation than all of them. So it's a big concern.
Okay. All right. Is that it, Mr. Maleta, or anything else?
No, that's all I have for the moment. Thank you.
Okay, hang on for a second. Don't go away, sir. Anyone in any of the board members want to ask questions of this gentleman? Mr. Maleta? Anybody? Okay, well, thank you, sir. Thank you for Mr. Maleta. All right, is there anyone else who wants to speak in favor or opposition to the petition?
Mr. Chairman, Jane has raised her hand.
Okay, would you put her on?
She should-
Hello.
Jane.
Yeah,
This
excuse
is
me.
Jane.
Okay, Jane, could you give us your full name, please?
My name is Jane, Jane Bessette, Bessette.
Okay, Ms. Bissett, do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us.
I live at 15 Bow and Arrow Trail, which is across the street from the proposed property. And I have lived there for approximately 10 years at this address. Prior to that, I lived approximately 20 years at 15 Indian Head Trail, which is also on Bow and Arrow Trail. So I have lived in proximity to this property for 30 years now. And when we went recently to the Conservation Commission, we got there a little later than I had hoped. And the docket had been moved up and Mr. Lynn's application was considered before we were able to give testimony. And it was then approved and to be sent to zoning. The Conservation Commission was nice enough to allow us to talk a little bit. And as we were talking, one of the members of the Conservation Commission requested that the matter be reopened. He asked it to be reconsidered. And in doing a little research, I found that in Robert's Rules of Order, if a member does ask for something to be reconsidered, that the moderator would then have to consider that, open it up, ask if it's seconded, and take a vote from those present. This was not done. The moderator at the Conservation Commission did not open it back up, said that it was done, but allowed us to speak, and we were listened to, but it was a closed matter at that point. In looking at this application, we built our house 12 or 13 years ago here at Bow and Arrow Trail. And when our wetlands were mapped, the wetlands perimeter area went across the lot that is proposed to be built on. And the new wetlands edge that Mr. Lynn's engineers have come up with has moved that back about 30 feet. I'm questioning the discrepancy in such a short period of time. Living here, things have not changed to drying up. Things have actually gotten wetter. in the past few years. I know that wetter does not constitute a wetland per se, but the trail now is boggy and swampy. If you go through the trail and down towards Mr. Lynn's lot, it is frequently very wet. There is vegetation there. I'm questioning that. I'm also questioning the drainage, which Mr. Maletta referenced. Frequently, there is water across that road. The actual drainage and stuff is really on Mr. Maletta's lot. In his front yard, there's a drainage. And this drainage, I'm questioning how it would be channeled to that drain and how it would impact the road, and why the Conservation Commission felt as though they could go with a 10-year, not a 25-year. There's just a lot of things about this project that I find concerning. There was one thing you mentioned when you opened up the meeting about altering the general area. This, I'm not sure about any changes in elevations when this is being built, but if there are changes in elevations that would impact the Fitzpatricks who live to the north, and Mr. Maletta who lives across the street, and potentially other people on Red Feather. So there's a lot of questions I have about this right now. Pardon me? But I totally support Mr. Lind wanting to have a house for his parents. I'm sure he would do a great job of putting something in. And I think he has done due diligence in trying to put plantings in and a rain garden and arrange drainage. It's just that I still do have some concerns, and I wanted to bring those concerns to this meeting, but also let you know that I am not in opposition. I just would like to have some of these concerns addressed so that I feel going forward that the abutters will not suffer any consequences. And that's about it. Any questions, anybody?
Okay, board members, questions for this witness?
Yes.
Mr.
I
Bernardo.
don't think- Yeah, John Bernardo, I don't think the applicant flags the wetland, Jane. I think DEM goes out there and flags it. I may be wrong, but I think that's how it's done. And the applicant's not going to do the 10-year. I believe they're going to stand by the 25-year storm plan for now. So I know those were two of your concerns, and I understand you otherwise support the application.
How is this pond or drainage runoff going to be channeled to the drain? How does that happen?
That's not for me to answer.
Yeah, I think we're, you know what, I don't want to get, start questions back and forth. We'll ask
Right.
at the end, Mr. Kenyon, to respond to that, okay?
Okay.
Do you have anything else you want to ask or tell us, ma'am?
No, I would say that is pretty much it.
Okay. All right, board members, do you have any questions for this witness? Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, is there anyone else who wants to speak in favor or opposition to this petition? Just tell them one more time how to do it.
If anyone wants to speak in favor or opposition, you're going to need to raise your hand. So on your computer, that's a function. It just has a little hand. It says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone only, You're going to hit *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to mute and unmute.
Okay, again, does anyone want to speak in favor or opposition to this petition? Anyone, Jess?
No one.
Okay, all right, Mr. Kenyon, I'll let you respond if you want to.
Sure. The wetlands were flagged by Scott Rabideau at Natural Resource Services. Scott's probably one of, if not the best wetlands biologists in the state. The site plan's a little confusing because it shows the trees and it shows the wetland perimeter. And it kind of looks like it's the wetland, but the wetland flagging is on the adjacent property and the area in between it is a perimeter. So there aren't any wetlands actually on the lot itself in that area. Regarding the drainage, I'm going to have Patrick, we did submit the drainage report as Exhibit 2, which was pretty detailed, but I'll have him go over what's proposed. I think the questions were specifically grade changes and then the type of system and how it's going to be handled going into the catch basin out onto the road.
Go ahead, Patrick. You're still under oath, so tell the truth.
Okay, perfect. So our drainage design is based on the 10-year storm. As you can see on the plans, the roof drainage is run via roof leaders to a collector line that discharges to a rain garden, which is on the south west side of the property in the area of the catch basin, as you can see next to Red Feather Trail. This is a natural low area. The rain garden is designed to overflow once it reaches a capacity of 467 cubic feet. When that overflows, it's graded to have the water run to that catch basin. When you design for the 25-year storm, which we're going to have to do, it's going to make that pond even bigger. What it does is it alleviates even more the lesser storms. So during a 10-year storm or a 5-year storm or a 1-year storm, you'll actually receive less runoff from that area. So you'll notice actually an improved condition in that area as far as drainage goes. I hope that answers your question.
Patrick, how about the grading and also the standards for the runoff? Are we permitted to increase the runoff onto any of the neighboring properties or into the street?
No, we're not allowed to increase runoff. We've graded it, graded the project in order to run, basically mimic the existing conditions. So you can't increase the amount of water that goes onto any of your abutters' lots. That's a basic principle of the drainage design that we've provided.
Great. And Mr. Chairman, I wanted to note that the applicant, Mr. Lind, is a builder. So I'm assuming, Brian, you're going to be the one building this for your parents.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so if he can also answer any building questions that the board or the audience may have.
Yeah, if I may.
Go ahead.
Design of the property is not with high concrete walls or any additional retention area for, trying to build up grade to it and sloping away from it. Everything is trying to stay as natural grade as possible. We're planning on either a slab or a very minimal crawl space just to run pipes and utilities. But other than that, it's not changing the topography of the lot. We're keeping it as close to natural as it possibly can be. We don't want to be trying to shed water somewhere else. I said, we're going to collect all the water from that lot into that large pond, which is the whole front yard, except for the driveway at this point, is going to be retention area.
Okay. All right. John, either for you or for your engineer on this, this is just a little confusing. The wetlands are not on your property at all, right? The wetlands are off the property line, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, John, do you have anything else to tell us?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Kenyon or for either of these witnesses?
I do.
Okay, go ahead. You're Mr. Cagnetta.
Mr. Cagnetta, I have for the catch basins, both of those catch basins are new or just the one next to your proposed rain garden?
I'm not sure about how old they are. And neither of them are proposed. There's two existing there.
Those two are existing because I believe, was it Mr. Miletta that mentioned that that catch basin was far away?
Yeah, I'm not.
I guess I'm confused as to the like what's happening to that area as it floods. If those catch basins, do we know where those catch basins go? I mean, are they functional? Are they is this have a hard time of draining this area? Like what?
Not that I'm aware of. I believe they are operational.
And where would they go? Into the pond or into?
Yeah.
They would go into the pond.
Yeah.
So the groundwater there is relatively the pond, or like what happens when this area floods? You have the wetlands there. So how is it that this rain garden will stop sort of flooding in the general vicinity, or will it? Like, explain it to me, please.
It will. So the purpose of the rain garden is to collect runoff from the large impervious area that is the roof. So it takes all of that extra water, gives it a place to go and then eventually infiltrate. So it's separated from the groundwater table a certain amount, then it fills up 8 inches with rainwater, which it infiltrates that. So instead of having all of that water run off of the property and into the street, into the basin, or onto other people's property, it captures that water on site and introduces it to the groundwater.
So what if there's additional groundwater, or just if there's more groundwater just being retained on the general area? I mean, it's going to overwhelm that system more than just the house will, right? I mean, meaning if there's flooding issues in the area already, will it help? Is this going to help it or make it worse? I guess is my question.
This would help it. It
help
they
the
use
the area
in general. It captures some of that water and it gives it a place. That they use vegetation in these rain gardens that they thrive in that wet condition. So concentrating that water there and allowing it to infiltrate, and any excess going to the catch basins will improve the drainage condition in that area.
So, and without grading the property in general, it's not, Mr. Lind, I believe, mentioned that they weren't going to regrade the whole property. So, because I know this has been a concern for folks in other areas where there's prone to rainwater or a high collection of rainwater, and that you're not making it worse, you're actually making that parcel better. But what's happening outside of that parcel, you can't really have any effect on or control of.
We can't modify anything outside of the parcel, so all of the grading and the routing of stormwater that we do is limited to what we can modify on the piece of land that we have. So we take the elevations that where they cross the property line, and we can modify them to get water to flow where we want it to. For example, there's a swale on the southerly property line that takes the runoff coming from the 2 lots to the south and directs it away from the house, but down the property line and into that rain garden. So that's the basic concept.
So this, in effect, will help Mr. Miletta, who's across the street at a lower elevation, because you're going to be grabbing some of the water that's coming off that property. you're gonna catch some of it in the front.
That's
Meaning-
correct.
Okay.
If I
Okay.
may, I was also there this spring.
Excuse me, it's Mr. Lynn speaking. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Sorry. I was also there in the spring as we were doing flagging and research on the property, and one of the town trucks came by, and I requested that while they were out there working, that they cleaned out the catch basin. Was completely covered, as the neighbor had stated, between leaves and vegetation. It's directly in front of the lot is the catch basin. It's not down the street. So there is one there, and it was completely covered when spring came around, and I had them shovel it out because I found it when we were working over in the area. When I drove over it with my truck, I noticed it. So I had them shovel it out so that it would be functioning, because it wasn't prior to that. So part of us being there and working on it, detaining the water on site, and being able to keep that cleaned and modified is certainly not going to be a pile of leaves in front of the house, where the driveway is leaving. That'll be cleaned and landscaped properly. So I think that part of the problem.
Okay. All right, Mr. Kenyon, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, board members, anything else? Any questions for these witnesses? All right, again, I'm going to ask one more time. Does anyone in the audience want to speak in favor or opposition to this petition?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Maleta has raised his hand again.
Okay, Mr. Maleta, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
All right, yes, you're already sworn in, Mr. Maleta, so go ahead.
Yep, very good. So just a couple questions. If I understand, Mr. Freeman is going to increase the amount of water that goes over to the storm drain. Did I hear that properly? I don't know if you can address that right now, but
Yeah.
that was one of my questions, because that's a major concern.
What other questions do you have, sir? And I'll have them answered. I don't want a direct questioning period here. Go ahead. What else?
That's fine, because that drain can't handle what's coming in there now.
Okay.
And they talked about, landscaping. That's like right on my property, or right on the line of my property. I don't know if anyone's going to be landscaping my property. I can't imagine. It's on my side of the street. So I can't see people coming over, maintaining the drain and doing that. I'm really concerned about that flooding. The water table here is so low. It takes just very little to threaten to bring water into my basement. And that's a big concern.
Okay, sir. Board members, any questions for this witness? Mr. Maleta? Thank you, sir. Okay. Please, John, just respond to that question, or have your engineer.
Patrick, if you can address that.
Yep. So as far as increasing the water to that catch basin, I believe you, Mr. Maleta, may have missed the catch basin that's on our side of the street. There are two basins in that area. So the basin that I'm referring to is actually on the easterly side of Red Feather Trail. So we would be routing stormwater to that. What that also does is it prevents, it's hard to see the existing contours due to, we've got a lot of stuff going on in the drawing, but the two lots existing to the south of us, when the water flows off of their lot, it gets caught into an existing low point that actually routes water away from that basin and at your property. So what we'd be doing is putting as much water into the basin as we can, while also treating it and preventing an increase in runoff. So therefore improving the drainage in your area for your parcel.
Mr. Lynn, can you just tell me on this map where Mr. Maleta's house is? You know?
I am assuming he's directly across from the driveway on the opposite side of
It's
the
directly
street.
across from the driveway? Okay.
Yeah, so he has a catch basin in front of his house, but I don't believe he even knows that there's one on my side of the road because it's been covered.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Any board members' questions? Okay, again, to the audience, does anyone want to speak in favor or opposition to this petition? No one?
There's no one.
Okay, all right. Having that, no one else speaking. John, you're all done?
We're all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right, gentlemen, let's just see how we feel about this thing. Mr. Bernardo, how do you feel?
Well, we've done a number of these in the past, and I'm confident that these OWTS systems substantially treat the offending water. I'm also confident in the, as well as whatever DEM is going to require down the road from anything that happens here. So I don't have an issue with it.
Okay, Mr. Cagnetta, how do you feel?
I don't have any particular issue. I think the owner has demonstrated the desire to improve the property and that the systems, as Mr. Bernardo said, that are top notch. So I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Mr. Daniels?
Mr. Chairman, I'm conflicted by the original statements of legal counsel with regard to no exceptions to the ordinance. 504AG requires a 25-year frequency rainfall event plan. I've heard testimony to a 10-year plan. I've heard no substantial testimony to a 25-year plan. And most of the objection I've heard has to do with runoff from a rainfall event as opposed to the OWTS event. I heard Mr. Freeman testify when he was asked about the change from a 25-year event to a 10-year event. His answer was no. That to me is not substantial testimony. And I don't think they meet the standard for the 25-year runoff. They're asking for a waiver, which I don't think we can grant. And again, I just have not heard substantial testimony that would support the ordinance, which requires a 25-year runoff plan. Therefore, I doubt very much that I can support the proposal.
Okay, Mr. Mark, how do you feel?
I don't have a problem with it. I think by cutting the 27 square feet to meet the standards requirements for the 25 years, my understanding, and that while the flooding is concerned, it seems to be mitigated by what Mr. Lind is doing in building practices with existing catch basins and grading of the existing property. So I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, Mr. Rosen.
I'm more or less swamped by all the information. I really don't understand it, but of course I'm kind of new and I've never been through one of these before. I guess I have to believe the expert when they say that they're willing to go to a 25-year plan and they're willing to chop off 27 square feet on the house. And that's going to bring it within the elements of the ordinance. So I guess I would go along with it, but since I don't have a vote, it doesn't matter.
Look, I would like to, if I may, just
Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
clarify. So it's assumed in applications of this type, the board has to rely on expert evidence. We all do, because only the experts can understand this stuff. You are required to accept uncontroverted, that means uncontradicted expert testimony, but obviously you need evidence to support that testimony. So if the evidence is we have currently designed the system so that it would not meet the requirements set forth in the ordinance, I think the question you need to have answered in the affirmative in order to grant the application is, can it be designed as such? Will it be designed as such? And then again, I recommend that as a condition of any approval, if granted, you require the applicant to submit a letter from a signed letter from the engineer certifying that it does meet all the requirements set forth in the ordinance. So I understand your concern, Tom, about, here's what they're coming forward with, and they asked specifically, can we have an approval with some of those requirements waived? The answer is no, but I think it is okay if they, at this point, go back to the drawing board, let's say, and adjust the plans for the system. If at the end of the day, what they come forward to with with the application for a building permit meets those standards. I think what you need tonight is simply the expert to testify that the system can be designed as such, and certainly that it will be.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, who's speaking?
As part of the, this is Wayne Pimental speaking.
Okay, Wayne Pimental, go ahead.
As part of the approval for submission of a building permit, this will get reviewed by the Department of Public Services through their soil erosion permit requirement. They will mandate that this meet the 25-year storm, or else they will not approve it. So this will be done through the permitting process to ensure that they meet those standards. Because I'm pretty sure the town is not going to want excess drainage going into a town drainage system that's already been designed for a specific use and not for any overflow from adjacent properties.
Okay, all right. Okay, and I kind of agree with pretty much what all the board members have said. I mean, obviously, Mr. Daniels, I was concerned with them asking for us to vary things like that we really didn't really know a whole lot about, and I would never vote for something to that effect. As Amy said, I don't think we even have the authority to do that. But from a standpoint of just voting for the OWTS within 150 feet of the wetlands, I can go with that, okay? So in any event, anyone else have any comments? Okay, would someone like to make a motion? How about you, Mr. Cagnetta? You look
I'm
like you
giving it a
want-
shot since technology has not been kind to me.
Okay, did you see that, Mr. Cagnetta, that you see her proposal on the screen, filling in the blanks for you?
Well, you see, now it's on my phone and I can't see very well at all, but yes.
Okay,
I'll
well.
do my best to-
Oh, you can't see it? All right, well then do your best. Well,
I'll do my best.
Yes, and let me clarify, because this is the first time we're trying this. This is Amy Goins, legal counsel. The movement, so Rob, you, in this case, the person making the motion, you don't need to, I would like you to continue with reading the agenda item as we normally do.
Okay.
You do not need to read verbatim from the screen everything that was entered into the record, because at this point, the motion that you're making is going to be memorialized, and Jess and I will work on getting it into this form. So the idea is we're no longer going to be making the decisions of verbatim of what you're saying. The critical part, right, is the because once you get to the standards.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would like to add, Amy, is that the whole thought process on this was just to make it easier for the person making the motion to remember who testified and things like that,
Yes.
so they could recite that. Just
Sure.
because there's so many people were talking, you know?
Sure.
And that
sure.
was the
And I can
reason
see-
for this.
I can see all that, so I can, my face might be really close to the camera, but I can't see it.
Yeah, I don't want to put words in Mr. Cagnetta's mouth. He's very good at doing what he does.
I'll give it my best shot. Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the petition of Brian Lind of 51 Tomahawk Trail in South Kingstown, Rhode Island, for a special use permit under the zoning ordinance as follows. The applicant is proposing to construct a new single-family dwelling. A special use permit is required because the OWTS is located within 150 feet of a wetland. A favorable advisory opinion was received by the Conservation Commission on March 3rd, 2020. The lot size is 11,325 square feet. The owner is James P. Sharkey for the property located on Red Feather Trail North, South Kingstown, Rhode Island. Tonight, we heard from the representatives of the applicant through the attorney, John Kenyon. Bruce Lind is the applicant and Patrick Freeman is the engineer of American Engineering, Inc. We heard from some of the neighbors expressing concerns. Mr. Miletta is a neighbor who's across the street at 14 Red Feather Trail North. And Ms. Bissett, nope, that's not Bissett. okay, Ms. Bissett is a neighbor at 15 Bowen Hour North Trail. And they had concerns over the flooding and containment of stormwater. And then we have the following materials that were put into the record that were listed. It's the narrative. Do I have to go through all those things? Not necessarily, right? But we have the narrative dated April 9th, 2020, the radius map, the abutters list, the owner authorization from Mr. Sharkey, the Vision Government Solutions field card, the legal notice dated May 1st, 2020, RI DEM letter dated January 14th, 2020, and Rhode Island DEM OWTS conservation permit dated January 29th, 2020. The applicant's exhibit 1, which is the soil erosion runoff and sedimentary control dated February 24th. The exhibit 2, which is the engineer's narrative dated March 18th, 2020, and the applicant's exhibit 3, which is the OWTS advisory opinion from the Conservation Commission dated March 4th, 2020. We have for findings of fact that that this is authorized by ordinance, and that that we're referring to, let's see, we find that it is authorized by us by the ordinance based on our need for to satisfy the various hang on a second, I'm losing my train of thought here. We find that it is authorized by this ordinance based on the section in which they applied for, which is the section 504. We find that it does meet the criteria set forth in this ordinance for the special use permit. That's mainly because they have submitted all the appropriate criteria for the OWTS system, and that this system is appropriate for this sensitive area. And the engineer had explained not only the OWTS, but also some of the stormwater management issues. This will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of this ordinance or the comprehensive plan of the town. We have considered, the board has considered whether or not satisfactory provisions and arrangements have been made concerning but not limited to the following matters. Ingress and egress to the lot will not be changed in terms of traffic control. Off-street parking and loading areas where required. There's no issues with that. Trash storage and delivery, no issue with that in terms of an OWTS. Utilities, no issues. Screening and buffering were required. Signs, there are no signs, and then other yards or open space wasn't considered. And general compatibility that this building does fit in with the general character of the area. The conditions, the applicant decided to change some of the footprint size as well as the 25-year stormwater issues. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Cagnetta. Would someone like to second it? Second, someone? Yeah, I can hear. Who seconded?
Mark.
Okay. Mr. Mark seconded. Okay. Any discussion? Okay. If no discussion, let's vote. Okay. Mr. Cagnetta.
Aye.
Mr. Mark.
Aye.
Mr. Bernardo.
Aye.
Mr. Daniels.
Aye.
Mr. Jurzak. Aye. Okay. Motion passes. Good luck, sir.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Jessica, you're muted again, but is there anything else we have to do?
The minutes from the 5:20 meeting.
Someone make a motion? Oh,
Yeah, sorry, quickly. This is Amy. We have a lot of attendees. I just want to maybe state again for the record, the Walsh application for Rosebriar Ave has been continued to June 24th, just in case there was anyone who joined the meeting late and missed that.
okay. All right. Well, thank you. Okay. Would someone make a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes from the May 20 meeting.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Cagnetta. Will someone second it? Come on, guys. Someone
Second.
second by Mr. Bernard. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, anything else?
Just attendance for June 17th.
Is everyone coming to June 17th meeting?
Yes.
Everybody? Okay, all right, fine. If nothing, will someone else make a motion to end this meeting? Thank God.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to end this.
Okay,
please.
second, someone? Mr. Bernardo, seconded, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Good night,
Thank you all.
everybody.
Aye.
Another-
Good night.
Again, another good time for all.
Yes.